I received from Thoth Intelligence some years ago about the Zeta Body. So I'd like to share with you the initial information I received and then discuss it a little. But before I read this, I need to talk about what Thoth calls the first, second, and third millenniums. He's not speaking of 100 years here. It's more of a cosmic experience. And the first millennium would be the creation of the world consciousness melding to this little ball of planet that was not ensouled, creating the environment for the soul of the planet, bringing Gaia into her seat, her throne of consciousness, and then the whole other story that Thoth relates to that. So that would be in the first millennium. And the first millennium technically ended with the time tsunami, which was the last destructive force of Atlantis. It sent it down for the final time. And then the second millennium, we entered technically then, but because of the way the time field was warped, it didn't actually strike, I guess you could say, really make the definitive change until the crucifixion of Jesus. And there's a whole story around that, of course, but I'm just showing you the timeline here. The third millennium is what we're entering into, because when we move back into the new Earth star, or the actual process of doing so, we're not there yet, but at some point it would be called the third millennium, probably when we're more enveloped into the Pyramidus Radius matrix, the platform for launching us into from a world system 1 to a world system 2. And it's kind of an overlap there, so it's hard to determine exactly where the third millennium starts and ends, but it ends on the other side, I would say, when we're in that field of light. So that's what he means by millenniums. Okay, now I'm going to read it to you. The Zeta body is not in direct spirit-to-matter alignment with the second millennium incarnated form, but is rather a double of the first, third millennium, the past and future realities, wave creation. Wave creation is a path that is created when two similar yet separate realities have occasion to touch, or more appropriately, to know one another. This forms a wave bending back on itself from both directions, meaning that it is bent by both realms of consciousness. In this way, a dipole of an event is created. So I pause in this reading to look up dipole, and it's an electrical charge. And I see that there are all kinds of dipoles. There's the electric one, the magnetic one, but when you get right down to it, they are connected to quantum physics. So let's just read a little bit about the electric dipole moment. It is a measure of the separation of positive and negative electrical charges within a system that is a measure of the system's overall polarity. Theoretically, an electric dipole is defined by the first-order term of the multipole expansion. It consists of two equal and opposite charges that are infinitesimally close together, although real dipoles have separated charge. Well, I don't think we need to go on about that. We can see what Thoth's getting at here. He's using this term in his own way to express this very close relationship between the first and the third millennium aspects with the second, where we are now. So this Zeta body is operating in first and third, but then as the second millennium self comes into the field through conscious awareness or through some process, it triggers that relationship, and we have the coming together, first and third, that sort of become as one with the second. To return to the reading, a Zeta body then acts as an extension of the wave creation, in this instance between the first and the third millennium. Somewhat like a time traveler, it can carry light codes through the portal between the three realities, bringing a stronger coupling to the building charge of their shared wave creation. Usually, a Zeta body arising from a second millennium incarnated form can only be sustained for small periods of linear time. In most cases, the consciousness of the individual is not even aware that such an activation has taken place, although he or she will certainly experience some sensation of the event. Their higher self has in effect agreed to act as a transducer for this experience. Such occurrences happening for an individual unconsciously are rare, but it is even rarer, particularly within the last 5 centuries, when an individual embodied within the second millennium is consciously informed of this process. Yet this will come to pass with greater frequency as the world moves toward its appointment with the third millennium ascended reality, the new Earth star. So the potential here that Thoth is speaking about in this transmission is that we will be able to consciously call upon the Zeta body. It is kind of like a Clark Kent Superman moment where you are in the phone booth and you need that connection. And this is higher self, not needing it, like you need chocolate or something, but a higher connection. And you know that now is the time to call upon your Zeta body. And as you do, and you're able to make that connection, you become the time traveler, and you can connect to it, even if it's for a few moments. It stimulates your whole system into action. And so what is this action? It is so multi-leveled that it's difficult to put your finger on one thing, but it literally initializes the current of no time, no space in your being and allows you to become, in a way, superhuman. I don't mean leaping from tall buildings with a single bound, but hey, maybe so. But, in thought, in experience, in how you experience life, in those epiphany moments, when you have some real epiphany, your Zeta body is very likely being activated for a minute few seconds, maybe even less than that. And yet it gives you that charge. It's like charging up your car with the batteries when the battery's dead, that burst of energy. It also works with people who, you've heard the stories that somebody accidentally runs over another person, and they go, oh my God, and they get out of the car and they lift the whole front end of the car up to get the person out, and they go, where did I get that strength? Some little person is able to do that for a second. They say, oh, it's adrenaline. Well, it's a lot more than that. So yeah, it is kind of superhuman in that way, but it aligns with all different kinds of creational experiences in the being, not just having, superhuman strength. Since it is coming out of the quantum field, it is going to be there for you where you need it, if you're really in sync with calling it forth. And when I say calling it forth, again, you don't have to have listened to this video or know Thoth speak and understand all of this. Somebody that's never, not even metaphysical, they could be in connection to their Zeta body in certain ways they have no idea about. And yet they are instinctively calling upon it at times when they need it. Now, not all the time, or they'd be superhuman indeed. But, there are those moments when the dairy farmer out in Kansas, he doesn't even know anything about all this stuff. And he has a moment, and he calls upon his Zeta body and his higher experience, and it's activated for that moment. So there are all different levels of this. It's not like you get in touch with your Zeta body and then you have all these superhuman qualities. It is a quantum directive experience. You observe it. It's different from when you don't observe it. You experience it because you are connecting to it. And in that connection, you draw what you need at the moment into your experience. Now I wish to bring the c60 molecule into this picture. It's c60 carbon, to be exact, and how it relates to the entanglement with the Zeta body. This I wrote about, maybe 4 years ago, when I came across this substance, and I took it to Thoth, and he gave me quite a bit of information on it. So I also began taking it internally. We'll get to that a little later, but let's talk about the c60 carbon right now. It relates to a lot of different factors that Thoth has given me through the years, like the itons, the blue needles, the lightning paths, the spinner fields, the Adonai Kadesh, the Genesis field and regenesis, and the Zeta body. We're not going to go through all of those, but let's look at how it affects the Zeta body. Or not affects it, it entangles with it. So this is what I wrote at the time, based on the Thothic transmission. All of the above, what I just read to you, are the underpinnings of the miraculous c60 carbon. And when activated by consciousness energy, it entangles with the Zeta body through the eye of the Imstra molecule. Now, the Imstra molecule, of course, is that definitive molecule that Thoth speaks about in our being that's in a quantum field. So you can't find it in any one place. It's going all over the place. But it defines us, and it defines our ability to become the true source creational beings that we are, moving into source, moving back and forward through time, space, beyond time and space. It liberates the soul from all those constraints. And that's a huge topic. I made a video on it in the past. So back to what it's saying here is, I'm going to read that line again. When activated by consciousness energy, it entangles with the Zeta body through the eye of the Imstra molecule. What entangles? The c60 carbon. The Zeta Body Entanglement, or ZBE, is our ticket to creating the pure gem body. You remember that. That is the actual vehicle of transformation and experience in the new earth reality or world system too. Now, other factors are involved, but that is the final brushstroke. The creation of the pure gem body. The ramifications of Zeta Body Entanglement for here and now body are quantifying in bringing us through the loop of reality matrices, effecting and substantiating our current reality stream. In other words, these reality matrices attach like sticky flypaper to our reality horizon, keeping us from the final frontier, so to speak. This happens as our own fear emotions trigger biochemical synapses in the brain-mind complex, the brain-physical-mind quantum, which magnetize and attract everything that isn't nailed down in the zone of the reality mix. The c60 carbon molecule is the base element for triggering a ZBE repeatedly through the Imstra molecule. For the Imstra is an etheric molecule that connects to the 3D physical through the quantum properties of the c60 carbon molecule. Understand that the Zeta body is not intended to be lived in, as is the pure gem. It is a quantum flash body which is intended to entangle with our 3D bodies as it flashes in and out of our energy body's field. This flashing can create short bursts of sustained effect in our cerebellum, opening our consciousness to a quantum field bandwidth of perceptions. It also would immerse our cells in the battery fluid of the Metatronic full light spectrum. When I say can create, this is dependent on the degree of light quantum fulfillment each burst contains, which in turn determines how long our physical bodies are entangled with the zeta within each flash range. So the bottom line is to create an atmosphere for sustained entanglements, but not too sustained. Like Goldilocks' porridge, it has to be just right. The just right comes from our consciousness energy. Thinking good thoughts is certainly part of the equation, but we also need to rid ourselves of the sticky stuff I mentioned earlier, the flypaper of reality lumps, or rather attracting them in the first place. This is another reason to saturate ourselves appropriately with consciousness energy activated C60. When I first started taking C60 about 4 years ago, I had an experience not long after I started where I was asleep at night, and all of a sudden I woke up just immediately and looked to my left. I don't know why I did, but I looked to my left, and there was this worm. It was big. It was like, I don't know how to tell you how big, but it was big, okay? And it had hopped out of my body. I just knew it. And it was like in slow motion, like the pictures of the astronauts walking on the moon, leaping up in the air and coming down with each step, That little old worm, not a little, big old worm, was going that way across the bed, leaping up and down, sort of in slow motion, and then it went over the edge of the bed. And I thought, oh my God. Now, having lived in Kauai for so many years, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, it's a centipede. But of course it wasn't. And it didn't really look like a centipede. I went right back to sleep. And when I woke up in the morning, the first thing I did was go to Thoth. And he said it was an astral parasite. Yucky. And it had been eliminated from my body by taking the C60. Now, I know I should have asked a lot more questions about astral parasites, but I didn't feel like doing that, and I still haven't. Possibly I should. In any case, I just wanted to give you my little story there. Now, I stopped taking C60, I don't know, maybe about a year ago, and I don't know why. It wasn't that I didn't want to take it. I have a lot of health situations. I take all kinds of natural stuff. Somehow it just slipped away, And the other day I came across a bunch of bottles of it. I went, oh my God, I need to take that. So I've started taking it again. I cannot tell you that I developed any kind of special talents or other than what I have already, or anything else, happened dramatically. But I felt an energy shift when I was taking it, at least initially. So that's all I can say about it. Now, I'm not selling this, but I do have a link to the one that I had been using and am using now, which is Thoth vetted. And I had heard from a good source that the people who make this, this particular one, put sound in frequencies into it, healing sound into it. But when I went back on the website, I could find nothing about that there. I'm just sharing that with you. And you might find a better one, that you feel better about, a better brand or whatever. But I'm going to put the link to that in the information box below, as well as my longer C60 article, which contains a lot of things from other people as well in it. So that's about C60. Now let's move on to the Serapis. This is something that I received from Thoth probably around 1980 to 1983, somewhere in there. So I'm going to be reading to you again from that material. The Serapis double helix or dual spiral is the register of energies along the spine, dually functioning in both bio and geo systems, i.e. the spine of man and the spine of Earth between the two poles. It is not merely the kundalini force emitted from the base of the spine, but the sum of all chakra focus and balance in the body. The initiates of Serapis, and the initiates would be in Muria or Mu, Atlantis, and also very prominently in the sacred hollow of the earth. So the initiates of Serapis are taught that the kundalini is an effort of the body, man's and earth's, to override the retrograde of disorder, whereas the Serapis helix or Serapis Atma is the maintenance of the balanced field of gravity. In this light, kundalini is becoming, while Serapis Atma has become, distribution of mass equal to distribution of energy, creating harmony. In the initiation of Serapis, initiates visualize the Atma, the helix of protonic blue and electronic red spirals turning about the silver cord, the neutronic silver-white spirit life, which is the reconciler of above with below. They then visualize the electronic current carrying their body's force toward the central atoma. In this instance, it means the central sun in the sacred hollow of the planet. The protonic cord transmits the earth force upward toward the body. Together they are being justified to the other through the silver cord of the neutron ray. The student synchronized one chakra at a time with the corresponding chakral earth energy field. As an example, focus on a beam of light from the heart chakra down the electronic cord of the Serapis helix. As the heart energy descends, so the corresponding energy of the central sun, of the center of the planet, is to be visualized as ascending the protonic cord of the helix. When the two energies reach midpoint of the Atma, they are to be mentally frozen, allowing the neutronic balance within the silver cord to reconcile the two opposite energy rays, human and earth, engendering a greater refinement in the qualities of both electronic and protonic fields. Now, I know this is difficult to follow, and I have no, sophisticated animations to show you exactly how this works. So you're just going to have to kind of go with the flow here and just take it into the inner being. To continue, a sensitive initiate feels the right moment to release this bonding and allow the retreat of the forces back into their respective houses, i.e. the heart and the central sun of the planet. The upper never descends then completely into the lower, nor does the lower rise completely into the upper, but rather the two find a reconciliation of ascent-descent at midpoint, where that which contains the germ of both focuses, the neutronic, advances the symbiosis to a state of purification. The midpoint is actually dual in itself, as it is registered on both sides of the atoma, that's the central sun, between the central sun and the North Pole, and between the central sun and the South Pole. This is but the first stage in the exchange generation of the Serapis Atma. The succeeding stages are given only to those who have mastered the first. I brought the Serapis initiation, or protocol as I prefer to call it now, into the picture as it is an essential part of how the Zeta body acts, how it is able to enter the second millennium physical body and create this systemic function of quantum leaping with that physical body and energy systems attendant to that body. So I just wanted you to have a bigger picture of it all, understanding the Zeta body, its entanglement, and also how it relates to the Serapis. Because if you don't have the Serapis aligned, you're not going to get the full potential of the Zeta body. In summary, the best way that I know of at this point in time to create a better relationship with the time-traveling Zeta is to imagine it. What we imagine, we create. And feeling and sensing your connection to this other part of your experience in another dimension, in several dimensions, knowing that it is part of your experience, it is part of your being, and you have a right to access it. Now, the Zeta body is not going to show up for you out of just pure desire. It has to have a connection to your higher soul being. And I could say higher desire, to put a little rhyme in there. The part of your desire that relates to spiritualization, the burning passion to become a greater spiritualized being. That desire is part of the experience to connect with it. So imagining the connection, bringing it down into your field and saying, I only wish to make this quantum connection when my higher self determines that it is appropriate. And allow that experience to percolate in your being. That experience of creating an imaginational bridge, which we are calling here the Zeta body.